Well, it was time to leave beautiful Edinburgh, and we got on a train heading to York, and it's a long ride, 6 hours and 11 minutes, and with a change of trains in Edinburgh at Waverley Station. Once again, we were treated to beautiful views of the countryside, but the train kept slowing down and occasionally stopping, and it stopped more and more, and we were worried about making our connection in Edinburgh. Finally, they announced that everybody would have to get off the train in Perth and change to the train behind us. So I figured that might be a problem, trying to even get on the train behind us, so we stopped in Pitlochry, the stop before that, and got off the train, and we were the only ones in the station. Well, there was no train coming, so it was time for lunch, and we went to a little hotel right near the station that was absolutely wonderful. After lunch, we went back to the station and waited, and then waited a little bit more. Finally, the train arrived, and we started heading southbound. Still a long ride ahead of us. After a very long day, we finally arrived in York, exhausted, and we went straight to our hotel, which was the Hilton Garden Inn, right next to Clifford's Tower, a very convenient location. So we were up early the next morning to take a walk around the city walls of York, which date back to Roman times, with the original walls, which we see in a minute, were built in 71 AD. Today, the walls are probably one of York's most popular attractions, and the walls themselves are over 2 miles long and the most complete example of medieval walls in England. Use caution when you're walking on the walls, as first of all, they're very narrow, and some spots there is no rail on the inside of the wall, so it's easy to fall off the wall. From the wall, you get some great views of the city, including the York Minster. You also get a good look at the York Railroad Station, which, by the way, has a great railroad museum. There's a break in the wall here at the river, so we went into the York Museum Gardens, which contains the remains of a large Roman fortress that was built in the late 1st century AD. In the gardens, you can see the remains of the fortress include parts of the walls and foundations of some of the buildings. One of the more impressive remains that is well preserved is the 10-sided tower. There are also some medieval ruins here, which include St. Leonard's Hospital. The grounds have the ruins of the chapel, which was above the hospital, and also some ruins from St. Mary's Abbey. came across some folks in the gardens that were exhibiting native predatory birds, and they were quite beautiful. Exiting the gardens, we came upon the northwestern gate of the wall which continues around the city. We headed back to our hotel to take a look at Clifford's tower, which is just right across the street from our hotel. The tower was originally built by William the Conqueror in the 11th century, and it served as a strategic fortification for centuries. It's a very popular attraction, and you get great views from the top, but I decided to get out the drone and get even better views, including some real nice shots at night. The next day it was time to head over to the Shambles, but we wanted to stop by the Parish Church of All Saints first, and then go up to the New Market Square before heading over to the Shambles. Once we reached the square, we were fortunate to run into a group of ladies doing some traditional dances. Fortunately, right across from York's chocolate story. Next up was a trip up the street of the Shambles. It's a historic street right in the center of York and dates back to the 14th century. It's one of the best preserved medieval streets in Europe, and it's known for the timber-frame buildings that sort of lead inward, where you could almost shake hands with the person across the alley from you. It's quite crowded, so try to find a time when there aren't quite as many people there and you can enjoy it more. Finally, it's time for a break, and we're right at the top of the Shambles next to the York Minster. After lunch, we headed over to an area behind the Minster and came across some stonemasons practicing an ancient skill in restoring some of the artifacts on the exterior of the church. Well, it's time to get out the drone and give you some views of the York Minster. It's right in the heart of York, and you can see it from all over the city, and it's one of the largest Gothic cathedrals in Europe. It dates back to the 7th century, but this building here is mostly constructed in the 13th and 14th centuries. It's dedicated to St. Peter and it's the seat of the Archbishop of York, the second highest office in the Church of England. Just a quick aside, the central tower here is large enough to hold the Leaning Tower of Pisa. The statues on the side walls here are the Kings of England and are a series of 15 sculptures that were added from the cathedral in the 15th century. They represent the monarchs of England from William the Conqueror to Henry VI. The choir was built in the 14th century and has a vaulted ceiling, some really intricate carvings, and a series of stained glass windows that depict scenes from the Bible. The choir also houses the Minster organ, which dates back to the 1830s and is one of the largest and most impressive organs in England. An unexpected delight was the chapter house, which is attached to the cathedral itself. It's a circular building, and the octagonal roof was built in the 13th century. There's a lot of intricate stonework and beautiful stained glass windows. There's also some very humorous carvings of faces, which you'll see here. The stained glass at York Minster is one of the most impressive features of the cathedral. It has some of the finest examples of medieval stained glass in Europe, with over 128 windows and around 2 million individual pieces of glass. Well, that's it for this part of the trip. In another video, we'll take you on some side trips that we took out of York, to the Yorkshire Dales, including Byberry Abbey and Castle Howard.